All right, if anyone has any questions, as always, please stop me. And if you're shy, you can type it to me on the side. We're in Derech Hashem. We're on Chelik Aleph, Perek Daled, Os Hey, which is 1, 4, 5. And in the Rabbi Naaman edition, we're on page 108. But before we start there, just want to mention this book, if anyone's interested, Kuntras HaKetoros. This is written by Rabbi Naaman, who is the one who wrote the elucidated edition of Derech Hashem, which we use. And he wrote a very interesting book about the Ketores, the incense that were brought in the temple, and the incense had the power to stop a plague. So a lot of the Gedolim have suggested to read the Ketores, to read the Parsha of the Ketores, to help stop the plague. And it's a very interesting book. He discusses a little bit why the Ketores stops a plague, and then he discusses what the Ketores were, and different things. He also has conversations that are relevant to our time. For instance, what do you do if you missed a lot of Torah readings in shul and you come back? Do you have to go back and read all the Torah readings, just the previous Torah readings? So he talks about that. So I'm just going to post a link on the side right here, so if anyone's interested. And just an interesting thing that he says based on Rav Gedalia Shor. Arnie and I used to go to Sons of Israel here in Manalapan, and the rabbi was Rabbi Nathan Shor. So his uncle, Rav Gedalia Shor, was a very, very famous rabbi. And based on what Rav Gedalia Shor says, he explains the reason that the Ketores stop a plague is because a plague means the angel of death, which represents the forces of evil. The angel of death was given permission to wreak havoc in the world and to destroy things. The Ketores, what they were, was different spices, and it included the chalbana, which was this spice which smelled disgusting. But when it was included with all the other spices, it actually had a positive smell. It smelled good. So this bad smell had a good smell when it was included with all the other spices. So he writes that the Ketores, what it does is take those bad forces represented by this gross smelling spice and transforms it into good. It takes the forces of evil and transforms those forces into positive forces. And that's what we try to do when we recite the Ketores. We're taking the angel of death, that even the angel of death can be transformed to good, and that will stop the plague. And Rabbi Naaman continues, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is mitzvos. He says that mitzvahs have the ability to take the power of evil in the world and to transform the forces of evil into positive forces. So just that was an interesting tidbit from the book there. But a very interesting book for anyone who's interested, and it's only like $12. So I thought that was good. Okay, so back to Derech Hashem. So a few weeks ago, somebody mentioned the opinion of the Rambam when it comes to Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. So as we explained before, the resurrection of the dead is after a person dies, according to the Ramchal. We'll say what the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, what the purpose of Tchias HaMesim is, that after a person dies, after Mashiach comes, he or she will be resurrected, and they will come back in a more spiritual form after that, and they will transform into a spiritual form until the world as we know it is destroyed and recreated in a more spiritual sense, and that's where we will get our reward, and that's called Olam Haba. So this world which we are in now is going to be transformed into a more spiritual existence, and those who merit reward will also be transformed. Their neshamas will purify their bodies so that they can enjoy Hashem in this new world. The Rambam doesn't hold like this. The Rambam says that Gemara that the Ramchal bases his opinion on, that this world will only exist for 6,000 years and after it will be destroyed, that Gemara, he says, is a minority opinion, and we don't paskin like that, and the world as we know it now will continue to exist. So if so, what is the purpose of Tchias HaMesim? So I spoke to Rav Aaron Feldman Shlita about this, and he said that the Rambam himself is a minority opinion. Right? The Rambam says that this opinion, the Gemara, is a minority opinion, but really the Rambam is a minority opinion. He said that all the Kabbalists and the Ramban, they hold like the Ramchal here in Derech Hashem, but the Rambam is a minority opinion who holds that this world will exist as it always is and will not be destroyed and recreated in a more spiritual sense. So if so, what's the purpose of Tchias HaMesim in the Rambam, right? In the Ramchal, Tchias HaMesim, right, it has a very important purpose. He explained, as we learned, that the soul is a very pure thing. The soul is able to purify the body, but that can only happen after the body dies and the soul is detached from the body and re-enters the body after the resurrection of the dead. The soul, as it is now in the body, cannot totally purify the body. That only happens after Tchias HaMesim. And then, and only after that, the soul purifies the body and will enjoy Olam Haba in this new recreated world. So Tchias HaMesim in the Ramchal makes a lot of sense. But according to the Rambam, what's the whole purpose of Tchias HaMesim? Right? Why does the body and soul have to be resurrected in this world if the world is just going to exist as it always did? So Maharshiva Aaron Feldman said that the purpose is to show the greatness and the power of Hashem, that He's resurrecting all of these people together, that the world should see this tremendous miracle that Hashem will perform. So Tchias HaMesim also has a very important purpose, even in the opinion of the Rambam, and famously the Rambam has a letter or epistle. I don't know what an epistle is, but people say it and it sounds fancy, that the Rambam wrote about Tchias HaMesim, about the resurrection of the dead, and he explains his opinion there because when he wrote it, a lot of people misinterpreted what he said, but the Rambam does hold, like everybody obviously, that the resurrection of the dead happens with the body and the soul. Okay, and that was just from previous weeks. Any questions on that so far? Okay, all good. So let's go on to what we're going to learn this week. And for those of you just joining us, we are on Chelik 1, Chapter 4, Letter 5, page 108. Okay, so Hastar v'hagvulus ha'ela. Hashem put us in this world, and He gave us different procedures and limits. What is that? And we have to observe these procedures and limits that Hashem gave us, and through doing that, the soul will become strengthened, and the darkness of the body will become weakened. So what are these procedures that God gave us? These are the commandments. Ha'asein v'halavim, the positive commandments and negative commandments. We have 613 commandments, 248 positive ones, and 365 negative ones. Asher kol achas mehem mechuvenes el tachlis hakanos ba'adam va'atzim bo achas mimadregos hamala hamitish zacharnu. That each one of the mitzvahs, acquiring them and the incorporation of them, causes a person to go on a higher level, the true higher level, like we mentioned. So, v'hasaris echad me'inyani hachoshech v'achasronos. Right, and and it also removes one of the aspects of darkness, chisaron, by doing the positive commandment, or hamaniya min alasi, or by not doing a negative commandment. So the mitzvos are connected. When we do the mitzvos, we are going up on a spiritual level, and they are all related to the purpose so that we can acquire that higher, lofty level. So there's a certain high level that we get when we perform the mitzvahs, or when we don't perform the negative commandments. The positive commandments, we will get that lofty level, and by not doing the negative commandments, we will also get that lofty level. Fine. Now, we mentioned last time, Rabbi Naaman actually addresses it himself, that when we say that a person doesn't violate the negative commandments, that seems to be only when you have a desire to do something and you don't do it, right? Like the other day I was riding my bike and I smelt this really good smelling bacon from this diner, and I didn't have a desire to go in, but it smelled good. But if you have a desire to go in and eat the bacon, but you decide not to do it because Hashem told you not to, at that point, that's when you get the that's called not violating a negative commandment, that you'll get that high spiritual level. But we can't say now, just sitting in my house, I'm not murdering somebody, so I get a high spiritual level right now because I'm not murdering somebody, or I'm not eating bacon because right at this second I have no desire to murder somebody or eat bacon. But if you have that desire, someone cuts you off on the road and you really want to kill him, and you decide, no, Hashem told me I can't kill anybody, so you don't do it, then you get that spiritual level. In addition to that, you also get the mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. You fulfill the mitzvah of fearing Hashem, because when we don't violate what the Torah says, because God said so, we also get the mitzvah of Yiras Shemayim. Okay, but doing the mitzvahs, when we do mitzvahs, we don't only get reward, but we acquire a lofty spiritual level. V'ulam, prat ha-mitzvahs kulam, all the details of the mitzvahs, v'chein prate kol mitzvah mitzvah, hine hem miyusadim alamitas mitziyuso, ve'inyano shala adam b'chal b'chinaisav. The mitzvahs are related to the reality of a person, the way he is, and all of his aspects. Va'amitas and yanei hashlemus hamitzdarchim, and they're related to all of the ways that he needs to become complete. Kal davar bitnav ugvulov, all according to the different rules. Ma'ashet tzarich lahashlamaso, what he needs for his completeness. So we have certain things lacking within us spiritually. The mitzvos, right? Because there is a spiritual reality how we are created. There's a spiritual world, and each person has a spiritual essence, which is a reality. Just like we can see there is a physical world, and we each have physical bodies, so too there is a spiritual world, and we all have spirituality. By fulfilling the mitzvos, we fix those aspects of our spiritual selves that need completion. We want to get shleimus. We want to get completion, and each of those mitzvahs, by performing them, helps us get shleimus. V'amnam, ha'chachma ha'yayna she'yaidas kol zelamito. The higher intelligence, meaning Hashem, who knows all of this, right? Hashem knows our spiritual reality. The Aidas kol anyane habruim kulam v'shimusheim k'moshebarsam be'emes. He knows all the aspects of people and everything that's needed. Hishkif ala kol uklol hamitzdarach b'mitzvah shetzivana b'toraso k'moshekasav v'yitzavenu Hashem lasa says kol achukim. He commanded us to do all of the statutes l'tov lanu, for our good. So Hashem created us. He created us with a certain spiritual reality. And based on that spiritual reality that He created us, He made 613 commandments that each one of them fulfills, makes us complete by fixing or completing that spiritual reality. So, as Rabbi Naaman points out, when we do mitzvahs, it's not like we just get a checkpoint. You did mitzvah number 1, you did mitzvah number 2, and we get schar, and we're like building up points and tickets so that we can go to the end of the amusement park and trade in our tickets for some reward. But when we do mitzvahs, in addition to getting reward, which we obviously get, it is misakein, it fulfills part of our spiritual reality and makes our spiritual reality complete. Okay, is that clear? Any questions, comments? Okay. Now, in addition to that, the Nefesh HaChaim writes that every Jew, when he does a mitzvah or an avera, impacts the spiritual world. Right? When we fulfill a mitzvah, it's not just that we're getting schar and our own spiritual reality is being fulfilled, is being completed, but the spiritual reality of the entire world is being fixed or is being impacted positively when we do a mitzvah. Or if chas v'shalom we do an avera, the entire spiritual world is being impacted negatively. He writes about how there are numerous spiritual worlds, and the highest level of one is connected to the lowest level of another one, and these worlds are all connected until it goes up. And when the Jewish people do mitzvahs, it impacts those spiritual worlds, and that is how Hashem therefore deals with the world that we are in. And the Nefesh HaChaim says a famous thing that Titus, we just had Tisha B'Av a few days ago, when Titus went into the Holy of Holies, Titus went into the Holy of Holies, he took a Torah, he put it on the ground, and he had relations with a prostitute. Right? Because if you had to think of like the worst sin you could possibly do, that would seemingly be up there. But the Nefesh HaChaim writes that when a Jew thinks an impure thought, that's more impactful than what Titus did. It's worse than what Titus did in the Holy of Holies in the temple. The reason is because his actions were not connected to the upper worlds. What he did in this world. But when we do something, when we do a mitzvah, we create worlds. And when we even have a thought of a sin, of sinful thought, meaning lustful thoughts, that destroys spiritual worlds. So while what Titus did, that only impacted the physical world, when a Jew does something, that impacts also the spiritual world. So in addition, every time we do a mitzvah, we get schar. 2, we're impacting our own spiritual realities because Hashem made us a certain way, and He knows, obviously He's the one who created us, so He knows we need these mitzvos to fix to complete that aspect of our spiritual reality, and there are 613 things, and we know that there are 613 commandments are juxtaposed to the 613 Ivarim, the limbs of the parts of the body. And when we do a mitzvah or a sin, it impacts the spiritual world, and not only our own spiritual world, but also that of the entire world. And that's why kares is such a very serious punishment. Kares means, right, so someone gets for eating chametz on Pesach, or not having bris milah, some very serious, or eating chelev, certain serious sins. Kares means that spiritual connection he has to Hashem and the impacting the upper worlds, that gets cut off. That's why kares is a very, very serious punishment. Okay. Questions? Comments? Concerns? Rebuttals? All good. Okay. Let's go on. Vav. V'hine. Shorish kol inyan havoda hi. The source of this entire service. What is the source? What are we doing when we're serving Hashem? Heyos ha'adam ponet tamid labaru, is that a person should always turn to his Creator. V'hu sheyeda v'yavan, he should know and understand shehu lo nivra el lios mizdabik b'baru, that a person was only created to cling to Hashem. Why were you created? Why am I here? Right? Everyone's going around. Most people don't really care why they're here, but thinking people that are asking themselves, all the philosophers asking themselves, why are they here? Why do I exist? The Ramchal tells us, lo nivra el lios mizdabik b'baru, a person was only created to cleave to his Creator. He was only put in this world to overcome his Yetzer Hara, to subdue his evil inclination, and to subjugate himself to his Creator with his intellect, the opposite of his natural physical makeup, desires, via manhig eskol peulosov lahasagas hatachlis hazem, and that all of his efforts should be put into reaching this purpose, and he should not veer away from that. So the entire purpose of life is to cleave to Hashem by conquering our physical tendencies and conquering our Yetzer Hara. So it's a very, I think, empowering thought. The next time we're faced, right, it's easy to say these things now when we're not faced with a challenge. But if you think that the next time, well, every human being, we're here to face challenges. Anytime we face a challenge that maybe we want to do an avera, if we think that the entire reason I was born and put in this world is that I overcome that desire, that could be a very empowering thought and help a person to overcome that desire. Because as we said, Ramchal mentioned earlier, we have two aspects. We have a spiritual aspect, our soul, and a physical aspect, the body. And the world, we're in a primarily physical body, and the soul doesn't grow unless we actively work on it and put an effort to grow our spiritual lives. And the way we do that, is that we are faced with challenges and we overcome those challenges, and we realize that we are here to serve Hashem. And while our physical bodies, we and our Yetzer Haras tell us that we are the center of creation, I should do everything that I want to do, the purpose of what we should be doing is that we do what Hashem wants, and therefore strengthen our neshamas, and that we realize that we are not the ikar of creation. We're not the center of the universe, and that what I want should be subjugated to Hashem. And obviously, it takes little by little, because it's a very tall order to be able to do this. But we should always try. Okay. Let's. What time is it? 9:53. We started at. Let's go a little further. Zayin. Hanhaga hazos mitzchalekish l'shnei chalakim. This hanhaga, conduct, is divided into two parts. Ha'echad hu b'ma sheyaseh mipnei shetzuva bo. So we're talking about doing the will of Hashem. There's two parts. Part number one is that we do things because Hashem commands us. V'hasheni, we do things that we have to do. He's going to explain. Perush, ha'echad hu klal ma'aseh mitzvos. One is the mitzvos, the actual 613 commandments. V'hasheni, klal ma'aseh adam mishtamish min ha'olam l'tzarcho. And the other aspect, how we serve Hashem, is how a person uses this world. He's going to explain. Maisa mitzvahs, the commandments, the 613 commandments, hine hatachlis bo la'adam she'aseu mavurhu, that a person has to do them. Shehu l'kayim mitzvahs borav l'asas chafso, a person should fulfill the commandments of his Creator and do His will. God says, take a lulav on Sukkot, so we take a lulav on Sukkot. Oh, sorry, someone had a question. I just noticed it. I wasn't looking at the chat. I don't know. I'm reading the question. Do you want to rephrase the question? Because I'm not...
It was from a few minutes ago.
Sorry, just noticed it.
1 second. Oh, you said that. You said that every Jew, when he does a mitzvah or an avera, it impacts the spiritual world. So I was wondering if that idea was connected to like tikkun olam in terms of like positive mitzvos or whatever, or like the Kabbalistic idea. It's like a little bit Chabad about like every mitzvah bringing like sparks of kedusha into the world. Is that like a similar idea?
I don't know enough to comment on it, to be honest.
I'm just curious. Okay, thanks.
But if you hear anything about it, please let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. But thank you for the question. Okay. So Maisa HaMitzvahs. So we have, again, these two aspects of serving Hashem. One is the actual commandments that Hashem tells us to do, like taking lulav, and we do it. V'hinei, hu mekayim chefzo yizbarach shmo b'zeh b'shnei drachim nimshachim zeh mizeh. V'hainu ki hu mekayim chefzo b'meshet tziveu shiyasa ha'maisa hu oseu. There are two things when we fulfill a mitzvah, and we're talking about the first category of mitzvahs, like taking a lulav or putting on tefillin. There are two things that we accomplish. One is that we do what Hashem said. We fulfill the desire of our Creator. V'hashenis, the second, ki hinei b'maisa hahu hinei hu mishtalim ba'achas madregas hashlemus. By fulfilling that mitzvah, we achieve completeness on a certain level, a certain aspect of completeness, and each mitzvah is different. Shehi toledus ha-mitzvah that is comes out of doing that mitzvah, kamosh zacharna, like we mentioned. So every time we fulfill a mitzvah, two things happen. One, we're fulfilling what Hashem said, right? God tells you to do something, I did it. Number two, each mitzvah completes us spiritually in a different way, and we get that spiritual completion. So the way a lulav will impact us spiritually will not necessarily be the way that tefillin will impact us spiritually. But by both, when we do tefillin and lulav, we do the same thing of listening to Hashem. That is the same. V'hinei miskayim chefzo yizbarach shemo, shehu chafetz sheyeh ha'adam mishtalim u'magiya lehenas b'tuva yizbarach shemo. Not only that, when we fulfill the mitzvos, we are actually helping Hashem, in a way, have the world achieve its purpose. Right? Why did Hashem create the world? We said that Hashem created the world because He wants to give goodness to His creations. So how do His creations get goodness? By fulfilling the mitzvahs. So when we fulfill the mitzvahs, not only are we listening to Hashem, fulfilling His will, not only are we getting a spiritual completeness, but we are actually also helping Hashem fulfill His purpose and why He created the world, which was to give benefit to His creations. So we are actually fulfilling the entire purpose of creation when we do mitzvahs, which is pretty cool. So that's when it came to mitzvahs. So let's just finish this os. We're going to talk about the second category. One category was doing mitzvahs. That's what happens when we do mitzvahs. Achein, what's the second category? Masha adam mishtamish min ha'olam letzarcho. A person has to use the world for his needs. Hine tzarich tchila sheyeh mugbal b'gvul ritzoni yizbarach shemo. It has to be the way Hashem wants. The first thing when we use the world, we have to know we shouldn't do something that God forbade. God said don't eat bacon. So when I smelled good bacon the other day, I didn't go in and eat it. And a person should only do things for his body, for his health, that will positively impact him. So a person should not just go after his physical pleasures for anything that he wants. So it sounds like this could be an argument against Krispy Kreme. The kavanah should be, the intent should be for his body, that his body should be prepared, it should be ready, be fitting, that his soul could serve Hashem. Right? We live in a physical world. We have to keep our bodies going. So the ideal is that when we do physical things that we need to do for our body, we all have to eat, for example. So when we eat, we should eat because we're serving Hashem. We should eat those foods that will help us be healthy and be successful, so that we can serve Hashem properly. We have someone here who does this for a living, helps people eat properly. I can put you in touch with her if she's interested. Okay. So that there shouldn't be something blocking us from serving Hashem, right? If a person doesn't take care of himself, right? If you do something which makes you sick, or if you, bungee jump and you get injured a lot and you're not able to serve Hashem, that's not doing the proper thing. When a person uses the world for this purpose, i.e. to serve Hashem, that using of the world in that way will make completeness, like we mentioned, and he'll acquire a lofty level like he would do by doing a mitzvah. The Ramchal is saying a phenomenal thing here. We said earlier, by doing mitzvahs, actual commandments, taking a lulav, wearing tefillin, a person gains spiritual completeness and does what he's supposed to. But not only that, even when we do things which are not mitzvahs, intrinsically, like eating breakfast, eating a healthy breakfast, that will also positively impact the spiritual worlds and is considered a mitzvah when we do it for the right purpose. If I sit down and I eat a healthy breakfast because I want to be healthy to serve Hashem during the day, whether that means sitting and learning Torah or going and earning a livelihood so I can support my family or davening or whatever it is, if that's my intent, then I turn that eating of breakfast into a spiritual mitzvah that will give someone a level of shleimus, of spiritual completeness. Ki gam zeh mitzvah aleinu. This is also a mitzvah. This is also a commandment for us. Lishmar skufenu, to watch over our bodies. Behachana haguna. L'shinuch alavadas barainu, so we could serve Hashem. V'nishtamish me'olam lekavana zu l'tachla zek v'yam mitzdarchlan, and that we should do that. That should be our intent. V'nimtzinu achinu misalim b'maisa hazeh. Anachnu misalim b'maisa hazeh. And we find that we are elevated through this. V'olam atzma misalim. And the world itself is elevated through this. It's interesting. He sounds like what the Nefesh HaChaim was saying, that anytime we do a mitzvah, the world itself becomes spiritually elevated because our mitzvahs positively impact the spiritual world. So the Ramchal is saying that also. That doing these things will assist man in serving his Creator. So we have these two categories. One is an actual mitzvah. Those are the 613 commandments that God told us to do. So obviously when we do this, we get spiritual completeness. But the Ramchal is saying even acts which you would call intrinsically parv, like eating breakfast, if you do that with the intent to do a mitzvah, to serve Hashem, that becomes a mitzvah and also spiritually completes a person and elevates the world with it. Okay, I think we'll stop there for today, unless anyone has any questions or comments. Good. Thank you to everyone for coming. Hope people have power and are doing well. And thank you again to Leah Goldman for sending out the Zoom link and organizing. Appreciate that. And have a great week.